My name is Erin Lindsey. Prescott invited me here. We know each other from swing dancing. So I think we've probably known each other for at least 5 years. In hindsight, we probably should have just done like a dancing demonstration or something. I am the president of the Phoenix Art Deco Society. We've been around for a few years now. We are a nonprofit dedicated to preserving, celebrating, and educating people about the Art Deco era, which is 1920s, 1930s, just about. So that's why I'm here, because the word revival holds some weight when we talk about this era, both because, we are in the 20s again, so it kind of feels like, it's already being revived, and also because there was a lot of revivals happening within the 1920s. So this was such an interesting word because it's hard to narrow down. My passions are pretty vast, and Art Deco was really a cultural movement that affected so many things. But I thought I could hone it in and do something specifically about fashion, which is how I even got into this. I've been collecting for different pieces, specifically from the 20s and 30s, for, probably like 7-8 years now. It started as a little like, oh, this is fun, and now it's a really expensive hobby. And I'm always on eBay, I'm at estate sales, and I'm always trying to find these little things that are gonna make my outfits perfect. And even if I can't wear them, even if their life, is over, it's still nice to just open up, look at, and put it back in my box. So it is something I'm passionate about, and it's something that as I was doing some research, because we're going to do a little history lesson today and then talk about why it's important. As I was doing this research, I got reinvigorated. My passions, I could feel them again when it came to fashion, because with the Art Deco Society, we're doing events all the time that engage people into historic spaces like this one, and really connect people with a whole era that may as well be forgotten if we don't, revive it. And that's really, I love it. It's also time consuming, and you're planning and everything. So to take a beat and to get back to my roots and research and, fall in love all over again was really special. So I'm happy to be here and talking about this. And we got a lot to get through, so I'll make it as fast as I can, because there's this big question: what is Art Deco? For anybody who might know a little bit, might not, might know everything. This era of the 20s and 30s, it was sandwiched in between 2 world wars. So a lot of evolution happened with the Art Deco era, but overall it was defined with bold colors, bold geometric lines, symmetry, and what really makes it special is that this geometric, forward-moving design wasn't just for fashion, and it wasn't just for painting. It was for advertisements and cars and architecture. Chrysler Building, probably the most well-known in New York. It was even seen in dancing, the lines that were made, doing the Charleston, and even just the spirit of Art Deco being this very modern era was expressed through not just visual arts. So I like to say it's not just an aesthetic, it's not just a style, it's a cultural movement. I like this picture on your far right. It has a lot of great motifs in it, and those rich golds, those fans motifs. It kind of waterfalls down, something that we see a lot, specifically in architecture. So yeah, it was definitely something never seen before. It was man-made, and then it was started, 1925 was the Paris Exposition. So we're celebrating 100 years of Art Deco this year, which is very fitting. And at the Paris Exposition, 20 countries were invited, 20 countries accepted the invitation to come to Paris and show them what they got. The rules were, all you can do is modern design. We don't want any traditional aesthetics in here. We want to see what the next chapter is. And it did get pushed from 1917 to 1925 due to the war. So Art Deco was kind of already happening. So we have this great, this great point in time where we could say this was it. This was the debut, the world stage. And the United States didn't show up. They thought they didn't have anything to contribute, but they did attend, and they took those ideas back. And we have what we call Roaring '20s that really the United States really took hold of Art Deco and kind of made it what it is today. So context is important when we're talking about anything. And so specifically in the United States, we have some post-war optimism. Americans are really good at optimism, and that kind of drove this modernity. The Industrial Revolution had happened. We're producing things at an extremely high level. Manufacturing expansion. Women's liberation was really big. So women were in the workforce and they were making decisions, and their skirts were shorter. And we have the era of the flapper. Technology was big. Phones, radio, the way that we were communicating and advertising. People were kind of bombarded by media for the first time. Not just the rich people, but also our middle class. The economy was doing really well in the 1920s until it wasn't. And then media and arts were affected. And this one on the bottom, travel, is going to be the biggest one we're going to hit on, which I guess goes with technology. But travel was becoming more widespread. It was still expensive, but more people were traveling and more people were getting different ideas from different places. And that is why Art Deco is the mother of the revival. 1925, they say, it's got to be thoroughly modern. That's hard to do. If anybody's tried to make something new, it's really it's almost like you can't, because everything, when you look at things, they come from something else. And when I look at my wardrobe, I see so many different cultures, so many eras, so many different inspirations that make up just one piece, one garment. So was it modern? Yes, it was. But just in a different sense than I think other people think, because, we have something that's never been seen before. But it all took from different cultures and different places. And I think we have the Paris Exposition to thank for that. It's a little ironic. All right. So, the mother of revivals, and we're going to talk about fashion specifically. There was revival architecture, cars, anything design. You see all these revivals. Maybe the most common you might think of is the Egyptian revival. That was really big in the 1920s. And revivals were happening, you can call it inspiration too, forever. Ancient Greek were inspired, It didn't just come out of thin air. And so here I have just a few examples of what we'll be talking about today. We're going to specifically be talking about women's clothing. And these are just some great examples of different cultures showcased through fashion. And we can't talk about this without talking about Paul Poiret, French designer, fashion, king of fashion is maybe what he called himself, and others. But he was a really big deal pre-1920s. So 1910s, he gets hired Ballet Russe, the Russian ballet, which was in France, to make costumes. And Paul Poiret was really inspired by, and I'm going to use the term exoticism, things overseas. And not only was he inspired by them, he maybe took them and didn't credit people and made up this whole fantasy about a whole culture, which we could call now cultural appropriation. And I think that's something that we all just need to admit about the 1920s, is that there was a lot of racism going on, and you can really see it in the fashion of the era. And knowing that context, we can still look at these garments and say, oh my God, that is amazing that you took these little pieces and made something still very beautiful, especially now that we can recognize where it comes from. So Paul Poiret was really known for taking away the corset, and he wanted just a nice soft frame so that he was able to drape and make different lines. This lampshade skirt, that first one you see, was a big deal of his. Obviously, nobody can wear that out, but he did a lot of costume work. So he really took that travel and discovery and made this story and marketed it to the people. He was very good at advertising. And so this was the first time that these exotic fashions were given to the public. And it sparked a lot of inspiration for other people. And what we're going to do is we're going to travel the world a little bit, and I'm just going to show you some comparisons from different places, different cultures, and how they translated into fashion in this era. So I don't know why I call this Mediterranean. It's really ancient Greek. The drapery, the lines. A lot of Art Deco is about lines and about looking up and having this nice vertical shape and things just draping off the body. And so the early 1920s, late 1910s, we saw a lot of this, a lot of soft forms. The chitin right here, it was a sport garment. You can even see it, getting a little short, and so we see that a lot in 1920s dresses for women. Russia, this was an interesting one. This peasant shirt or peasant blouse, these asymmetrical buttons on the side. Definitely drawing inspiration. And the fur trade was really big in the 1920s, because what's a flapper without her big fur coat? So that was, definitely straight from Russia, importing exquisite furs into the States, other places in Europe. Africa. This was an amazing little ad that I found. It's a mud cloth. Is what they use in African tribes, and you can see the patterns. So this is more textile inspiration. Definitely the turban from here, and some Middle Eastern influences as well. I put a picture of Josephine Baker, and if you don't know who Josephine Baker is, she is a very famous dancer from the 1920s, actress, singer, goddess. She is so amazing.
She was a spy.
And she was a spy in World War II, so it makes her a certified badass. Sorry. But I put a picture up here because this is her famous banana skirt, and she did this. It was an awesome dance, but it was called Dance Sauvage, Savage Dance. She was French. And it kind of opens up the conversation of how black people and people of color at the time were subject to this romanticization and this criticism at the same time. And, they wanted, this spirit of the era or the spirit of the culture. But then, it's the 20s, and they were extremely racist and bigoted about it. So, but it also gave her a platform, and now we talk about her to this day. And she was fabulous, and she owned it, and she made it a statement for African-American people at the time. Indigenous tribes. Can't talk about fringe without talking about that. The fringe that you might see on Amazon dresses, little Gatsby dresses, wasn't really happening in the 1920s. It instead took this form. I guess I'm wearing one too. It's a little wispy, right? The silk chiffon that you can see in these beautiful women right here. And also just strips of fabric creating fringe, which was perfect to do the Charleston, showing your legs, showing your knees. This one gets 2 slides because this is a great example of when inspiration becomes a phenomenon. 1922, King Tut's tomb was discovered, and the world went insane. Specifically, the United States, specifically the United States, and in return, everything ended up having this Egyptian motif on it. These are just some examples. You have beaded dress. The headdress thing was really big. You might see flappers wearing their little, headbands. Definitely a reflection of ancient Egypt. Even just the geometric patterns. It's not always, when we see these revival fashion things, it's usually not just a big costume. It's just little elements. So I really like that day dress shirt. The jewelry, big deal, because they were discovering a lot of that in the tombs. Beautiful dress. And beadwork, big in Egypt. So we have aprons, dresses, things like that really inspired those heavily beaded silk dresses. And I love these pictures on the right, because these aprons were tied in a very specific way in ancient Egypt, Syria as well, and you can just, it's so noticeable to me when I look at this woman in the blue dress with her apron. And even just the cut of this dress right here has this, bunching of fabrics, and it creates the drop waist, which was really popular at the time too. And that shade of green was called Nile green. Just another fascination with the era. We'll touch on East Asia as well. Silk trade, really big. brought a lot of those really drapey silks that we see. Kimonos made a huge comeback. They were existing at the same time, but white people were discovering them for the first time. So would you call that a revival? I don't know. But still a big deal. And there's that purple dress that we saw in the beginning. It has some really intricate geometric designs, reminiscent, I would assume, of Chinese characters. And then at the top there, just another example of textile. So in shape, in textile, in material, a lot of people at the time, a lot of fashion houses were drawing inspiration from so many different things, and especially like ancient cultures. And then just one more photo of how crazy it kind of got. Movies took it to the extreme. Things like the Queen of Sheba and the Sheik were definitely making caricatures of those movements. And then advertisers, man, I love Josephine Baker. I put her in here like 3 times. But this advertisement says you couldn't buy it at the drugstore 3,000 years ago. And look at her. She's all in, she has the whole Egyptian headdress and everything. I love the photo on the right. It's a gas station. And when I say phenomenon, it was a phenomenon. It was Egyptomania. They had it in the papers. They knew what they were doing. So definitely capitalizing on these types of things with the media. But regardless, taking into all those contexts, all that information, the biggest thing is that it was Art Deco. All of these different cultures, all these different styles, or just like, inspirations made this one beautiful thing that sometimes is hard to define, right? Like you can define it with geometry and stuff. When you get into fashion, it gets a little grayer. And of course, it's up to you how you feel about it. But it was just this movement. There was nothing like it before. And I love the irony of this modernity with all of these traditional elements. So why does it matter? Well, what did they do wrong? They didn't understand what they were reviving all the time. Sometimes they did. Cultures were constant victims of racism. The messaging gets a little funky, gets a little stereotypical. Sometimes they weren't crediting where credit was due. But what they were doing right was experimenting, and that was the biggest thing in the 1920s is everything was so new. The way we were communicating was so new, and sharing ideas and using all these new man-made materials to build things. Skyscrapers were happening. That hadn't happened before. There was a lot going on in different aspects of art. So experimenting, they were morphing ideas into their own or adding upon them, and they were making it accessible. There were still huge class divides, but like never before, people were able to either afford these things or at least like admire them or witness them. Whether they were buildings in their neighborhood or a fashion magazine. And you went from this to this as a result of that. This woman on the left is a very classic Edwardian silhouette, and the woman on the right is Louise Brooks, famous film actress. There was a cultural shift here. You can just see it in the way they look. You can see it in what they're wearing. And it was something we have to remember here is that it's about, to revive something correctly, it's about thought and honoring something and understanding it to a degree in which you can actually like make it something new and it makes sense and people will have a feeling about it. And I think when I started the Art Deco Society, I had a big issue because I love the 1920s and I wanted to recreate it. I wanted to copy and paste it. And that didn't work because you're not going to evoke the same feelings as you did in that era with just copying and pasting something now. And it's not going to resonate like you want it to, and maybe it'll fall short, or maybe there's not enough education. Like there's so many different factors that just didn't make it right. And so I learned early on that it was about creating something that was alive and something that people could join in on and kind of feel like they can, take it and run with it, and they can make it their own and make it this community. And I'll never forget, we did an event at the San Carlos Hotel, and they have a ballroom that's not usually used as much. And this hotel is from 1928. And we did this cocktail event, historic cocktails, jazz, people were dancing, and it was all, I tried to make it as, immersive as possible. And my friend Roger comes in and he's like, this is it. He's like, this is living Art Deco. Feels alive. It feels like you're actually creating something new and not just copying something from the past without that context. This is just appreciation for 1930s. We didn't talk about it today, but it did change. And then, I guess I won't go into too much depth about this, but it's not, these are some pictures from Phoenix, because Phoenix has Art Deco, and I think not a lot of people know about it. And my goal is always to get people into these buildings or into the clothes or, doing the dances and stuff, because it gives you firsthand, it almost gives you, memories about it that you didn't have. Because I think an enemy and a partner to revival is nostalgia. It can kind of kill whatever you're doing, or it can really add to it. So it's like this very fine line. And I love giving tours, and I love doing these events because it makes people feel like they are a part of this living art. That's what I got for you today. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.